There was recently evidence turned up in I think it was Northamptonshire archives of him going to a wedding reception during the period of the Civil War, and apparently got quite tiddly at the wedding reception, started a pillow fight with some of the ladies present, and then a custard pie fight with some of his officers.
You're listening to Come Here, the podcast for and about heritage attractions, where you can discover somewhere worth visiting. I'm your host, Dr. Liz Drury, a freelance voiceover artist with a background in archaeology, specialising in voiceover for the heritage sector. Each week, I chat to someone from a different museum, historic site, gallery or cultural space about why you should visit, and exactly what you can expect when you get there. Stuart Orme is the curator at the Cromwell Museum in Huntingdon, Cambridgeshire. The museum houses the most extensive collection in the country of artefacts related to Oliver Cromwell. Thank you very much for being my guest on the podcast today, Stuart.
Nice to be with you.
So can you just introduce yourself and tell us what your role is at the museum?
So my name's Stuart Orme. I'm curator and director at the Cromwell Museum in Huntingdon. So I'm basically the manager and director of the place, and I look after the remarkable set of collections that we've got here.
Yeah, how long have you been there?
Just over 8 years now, actually. 8 years at the last week, I think it is, after the time we're recording this at the moment. So, it's been a busy 8 years, actually, and some exciting times for us over the next few ones as well, hopefully.
Yeah. So tell me about your building. You have quite an interesting museum building, don't you?
We do, yes. It's quite tiny compared to a lot of museums, but it's quite beautiful. It's one of probably the oldest, it is the oldest building in Huntingdon. Parts of the building date back to about 1160. It was originally part of a medieval religious house, a house of Augustinian canons, and it's situated on the High Street, which for most of history was the Great North Road. It's the main road between London and York. And this particular religious house was originally designed to provide accommodation to travellers coming through the town, so sort of pilgrims and so on who couldn't afford to stay in the taverns could get a bed for the night there. And then at the Reformation, most of the complex was demolished, but our little bit was retained, and we know by 1565 was being used as the town school.
Yes.
The Huntingdon Free School, which was basically there to provide education to the sons of the freemen of the town. And in the 1600s, we had two very notable students within a generation of each other. The first, of course, being Oliver Cromwell, who was born in the town here and spent over half his life here. The second, about 30 years later, was Samuel Pepys, the noted diarist.
Yes. So how did you decide, or how did someone decide, that the building was going to be the Cromwell Museum and not the Pepys Museum?
Well, Pepys' connection to the town is slightly more tenuous, although he lived here for about a year as a schoolboy, and he later inherited a house nearby in Brampton. Obviously, he's most famously associated with London.
Yes.
Whereas Cromwell is indelibly associated with Huntingdon. He lived here for over half his life, and although he then moved on to St Ives in Cambridgeshire and then Ely, he came back here regularly and raised his first troop of cavalry to fight for Parliament here during the Civil War.
Yeah.
And what happened was in 1958, for the 300th anniversary of Cromwell's death, a temporary exhibition was held here in Huntingdon Town Hall, where our office is. And the Grand Georgian Assembly Room was turned into an exhibition gallery, and they brought in items from many national collections, including some that would never be let out today, like the original death warrant of Charles I.
Wow.
And items from the Cromwell family and various other things. And the exhibition was only on for a month and was getting over 100 visitors an hour going through it.
Well.
So that created a kind of campaign to create a permanent museum to Cromwell that was then opened in October 1962 in the building, which we've now got. It had been recently vacated by the grammar school at the time, and it was then taken on by the county, and originally was run by the local authority until 2014, after which we became an independent charity. So our claim to fame otherwise is we were opened the same week as the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962. So I don't think the opening of the Cromwell Museum was quite front page news with the threat of nuclear annihilation. So
tell me about some of the artefacts that you have there.
So the collection, we've got about 1,000 objects in the museum's collections, which is quite small compared to most museums, but it's hugely significant. It is the best collection in the world of artefacts relating to Cromwell. About 80% of the collection belongs to us. About 10% is on loan to us from other museums, including some Civil War arms and armour from the Royal Armouries in Leeds and a few items from the London Museum. But about 10% of the collection is actually on loan to us from Cromwell's immediate descendants, and this includes quite remarkable items. So what the 3 out of the 4 swords in existence that can be proved to have belonged to him we have. We have what is reputedly his hat. We have his medical chest, many personal items and some of the family portraits. Many of the famous paintings of Cromwell you'll see in sort of history books and on TV documentaries. You know, we have them. They're in our collections. They're on our walls. So it is a remarkable collection of artefacts, a mixture of arms and armour and personal items and documents, as well as also items that relate to how Cromwell has been remembered over the last 375 years or so.
Yeah. Now, obviously, Cromwell's quite a controversial figure even today. So how do you negotiate that within the museum? How do you tell his story?
That's a very good question. I mean, he's one of the most fascinating, complex, paradoxical characters in British history, and as you rightly say, also as a result, therefore, one of the most controversial and divisive characters. And our job is always, as we say to people, is not to be his fan club. Our job is to tell the story, as we put it, warts and all, which is the very handy advertising phrase he may or may not have invented. So our job is we tell the story honestly and fairly to people. So where we come to some of the controversies, particularly around, for instance, his infamous campaign in Ireland in 1649, for which he is reviled in Ireland today, then, you know, we're very honest about sort of what happened there, and where there are multiple interpretations, we put sort of all of those and allow the visitors to make their own mind up based on the evidence. We try and treat the visitor with respect and let them come to their own decisions, really.
Yeah. And I know you also dispel some Cromwell myths as well, don't you? The one about Christmas particularly is interesting.
Yes. He's one of those characters, because he's the most famous person from that particular period of history. He gets, we get what I can sometimes refer as omnipresent Oliver syndrome, which is that his name gets attached to absolutely everything. So, you know, if you talk to people, you know, he stayed in virtually every pub around the country and so on. These are mostly folk memories of the parliamentarians that, you know, obviously become Cromwell because it's a more exciting story.
Yeah.
So he gets the credit for things he didn't do. So he didn't win the Civil War single-handedly for Parliament, but he also gets the blame for things he didn't do, including the banning of Christmas, which he actually had no involvement with. When the ban was passed in 1647, he was away at war at the time, and at no point in his voluminous correspondence does he mention the ban on Christmas at all. We don't actually know what he thought about it. And the ban itself actually proved to be, shall we say, largely ineffectual. MPs sat in Parliament in 1656 on Christmas Day, which they regarded as a normal working day, and whinged about the fact that all the shops were shut when they were supposed to be open in central London, and that none of them had had a wink of sleep the night before because they'd all been kept awake by the neighbours' Christmas parties. So moral bans like that would have been very difficult to enforce in the 17th century, bearing in mind there was no such thing as a police force.
No.
Interestingly, it was far more effective north of the border in Scotland, where there was the ban there, which was brought in before the Civil War by the Scottish government, lasted for over 70 years and left a cultural impact where even today many Scots regard Hogmanay as being more important than Christmas.
Yeah. So what would you say are the must-see highlights of your museum?
All sorts, really. So, I mean, we try and, as I say, go through Cromwell's story, which is sort of from his early life here in Huntingdon, when really he was a very minor figure. He would have been a footnote in a local history book through until, obviously, the Civil War broke out, and by an accident of history, he became a significant figure. So one of the most iconic items, as already mentioned, is what is reputed to be his hat, which people are just fascinated by. It's a genuine 17th century hat, It's made of wool felt. It's huge. It's very broad brimmed, which is very much a status symbol. It's on loan to us from the Cromwell family. We can't prove for certain that Cromwell actually wore it. Mrs. Cromwell didn't think to stitch his name inside or anything. So yeah, it's an amazing item and an astonishing survival that a piece of fabric like that has survived from the 17th century.
Yeah.
They say beautiful items like the Florentine chest, which is decorated with stone inlay, what's a type of Italian inlay, what's known as pietra dure, and was given to Cromwell as a diplomatic gift in 1656 by the Grand Duke of Tuscany, Federico de' Medici. And it contains inside it about 40 beautiful little glass pots, each of which has a beautifully embroidered cap, which actually are as fresh as the day they were made because they've barely been exposed to daylight.
Yeah.
And so they look as though they were made yesterday. And inside these little pots originally would have been soap. So it's like getting an expensive gift basket from a Mason or Lush or something. And some fragments of that soap actually survived and was scientifically analysed a few years ago and found to be scented with oranges.
Oh, interesting.
So, whether or not Cromwell's wife and daughters had that away, I don't quite know, but not much of the soap survived, so it obviously got used at some point.
Yeah. On the subject of fruit, I noticed something about pineapples on your website. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so one of the curiosities about Cromwell is that he's possibly the first person in Britain to have tried eating pineapple. The first pineapple we know that was imported into Britain was brought in 1657 and presented to Cromwell as a diplomatic gift. The diarist John Evelyn describes the event in his diary. Whether Cromwell actually ate the pineapple and what he thought of it sadly isn't recorded, but pineapples would have been a hugely exotic fruit at that time, and in fact for a few generations thereafter they were commonly used as table decorations because of their remarkable appearance. And in fact they were often rented. You could rent a pineapple for your dinner party so that you could look very posh to all your friends. So. But that all begins with Cromwell in much the same way as, for instance, coffee house culture emerges in the 1650s, during his time as well.
Do we know what he thought about coffee?
Well, it seems to have certainly spread quite widely in London. Quite a few Puritans seem to have quite liked coffee because, of course, it wasn't necessarily, it was non-alcoholic and therefore was likely to lead to more restrained behaviour. Having said that, we know that Cromwell himself liked a drink or two. He wasn't quite the dour character that many people think. He liked music, he liked, just not in church, he liked dancing, he liked a drink or two, and was occasionally known to smoke a pipe as well. So,
yeah. Do you have any special exhibitions that take place during the year?
We do, yes. So we regularly have 2 temporary displays that take place each year. So we tend to run one from the end of April through to sort of October time, and then another one through the winter months. So at the time of recording, our current exhibit is on 17th century fashion. That comes to an end in a few weeks' time. And then at the beginning of May, our next exhibition looks at the story of the grammar school itself, the early history of the grammar school in which Cromwell went to school. That'll run through to the autumn. And then the next exhibition from the autumn running into the spring 2027, we'll be looking at siege warfare during the civil wars. So sieges of great houses and fortifications and castles and so on.
Yeah. So how long should people allow for a visit?
That's a good question. We're quite a small building. It's about 70 square metres. Most of our visitors tend to allow about an hour or so. If you read absolutely everything in the museum and you can walk around and get the story simply from a single few sentences on each panel, you can dip into it as much as you would like. But there's layers of information and interpretation, and sometimes you get visitors who spend quite cheerfully 2 or 3 hours in the building. So it really depends, as always with all museums, how much you want time and effort you want to invest,
Yeah.
and how much you'd like to explore. And our volunteers, who are always on duty in the museum, are always there to happily answer questions and chat through the period, and will quite happily entertain people for hours if required.
Yeah. So what kind of form does the museum take? Is it everything is just for looking at in cases? Do you have any interactive elements?
No, we have interactive elements as well. The museum was refurbished in 2020. We had a major refurbishment and a grand reopening at the beginning of March 2020, which unfortunately, you can probably work out what's coming next.
Yes.
Yeah. 2 weeks later, we had to close when obviously the pandemic happened. But yeah, no, there's hands-on activities inside there that people can have a go at. The dressing box is very popular with, shall we say, children of all ages.
Yeah.
So not just the kids, but also adults are fascinated by, trying on helmets and trying to feel the weight of a musket and a pike and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And there are sort of 17th century games and activities that you can have a go with there as well. So there are, even within our small space, elements of hands-on activities. And we regularly have an events programme, including, of course, children's activities during every school holiday as well.
Yeah. Do you have school groups coming in or other kinds of groups come to visit?
We do indeed, yes. So we have quite a busy education programme. We do lots of local primary schools come to us because they have to do a famous local individual. We also go out to schools, and we also do sessions online as well. We kind of make ourselves available, particularly for sixth form groups who are studying at Cromwell at A level. We will quite happily do sort of sessions via Teams or Zoom, so remotely, so that there are lots of sixth form groups doing A level all over the country who can sort of pick up with. We also get lots of other groups, so we quite happily go out and do talks, clubs and societies and local history groups and so on, and get visits from them as well. So we can do organised guided tours both of the museum, around the town as well, including sort of aspects of Cromwell's Huntingdon, and also the historic town hall just across the road as well, which is a lovely building with its historic courtrooms. So we try and work with the town council to more widely promote Huntingdon's rich heritage.
Yeah. How accessible is your site?
So the museum itself is completely accessible in terms of for wheelchair users.
Yeah.
So as I say, again, it was redone in 2020. So, and in fact, one of my volunteers actually is a wheelchair user. So we're very conscious of this particularly. But also as well, we have things like large print guides for those who struggle with some of the text around the museum. We have an audio guide using the Bloomberg Connect app as well.
Oh, yes.
So, we can, there's an opportunity to find further information for the general visitor, but also as well for visual impairments as well. There is an opportunity to discover more through audio through that way.
Yeah.
And we offer specialist tours as well to groups as well who might have particular needs or requirements. We're always happy to try and arrange those and accommodate people accordingly. Yeah.
And how family friendly are you, and what sort of age of children is it suitable for?
We get some regular visitors who are teeny tots who come into the museum who will spend ages playing the 17th century drum that we've got, which they seem to adore, but one or two other visitors at the time may want to put their fingers in their ears. So no, we welcome families and people of all ages in the museum, so it's we try to make everybody welcome.
Yeah. What about dogs?
We do actually allow dogs. We're quite unusual in that regard for museums. Most museums, it tends to be sort of simply assistance dogs. But because we're quite small, we actually welcome well-behaved dogs of all sorts actually into the museum. We try and limit it to just one or two at a time.
Yeah.
Obviously, where dogs are actually welcome.
Yeah. And do you have any other sorts of facilities like a shop or a cafe or a picnic area?
We don't have a cafe at the moment. Hopefully with our proposed expansion plans in the future, we will do. We do have a small shop area. We do also have an online shop as well. And so we sell all sorts of books and merchandise relating to Cromwell. One of the things that's of particular interest to many people is that we have actually English Civil War Lego, That
Yes.
was produced specifically for us. We are the only place in the world you can buy a Lego Cromwell or Charles I from.
Fantastic.
And we sell those or send those all over the world through our online shop.
Oh, that's brilliant. So are there things that go on behind the scenes at the museum that the visitors don't necessarily see?
Always, yes. So and we're a fairly small team. So as an independent museum, an independent charity, we have effectively 4 members of staff at the moment, 2 full-time and 2 part-time. And so that involves every aspect of running the museum, from sort of obviously the day-to-day operations to dealing with the collections, to education sessions, to the retail elements, to fundraising as a charity. So yes, everybody thinks that my job as a museum curator is we're always depicted in TV documentaries as sitting in a darkened room with beautiful objects and white gloves on.
Yeah.
Most of my time, I'm afraid, is spent with spreadsheets and particularly filling in grant applications.
Yeah. So in the 8 years that you've been working there, what have you learned about Cromwell that was unexpected, that you didn't know before?
Oh, huge amounts. And you're kind of learning new things all the time, because obviously it's an ongoing area of academic research, and surprisingly new evidence does turn up periodically as well. So it is something we're constantly refreshing. And, lots of people ask me. I was out doing a talk this morning to a group, actually, and inevitably I get asked the question at the end of it, do I think he's a hero or villain? And I'm not sure I think he's either, to be honest. I think he's not so much dark or light, but shades of grey at different times in his life, and different shades of grey. I think he's a fascinating character nonetheless, and the more you find out about him is sometimes surprising. There was recently evidence turned up in I think it was Northamptonshire archives, of him going to a wedding reception during the period of the Civil War, and apparently got quite tiddly at the wedding reception, started a pillow fight with some of the ladies present, and then a custard pie fight with some of his officers, which is not the image most people have of him, to say the least.
Not at all.
No, so there's this man who he's a sort of deeply emotional character, and I think he's also battles with depression for much of his life as well, which is fascinating. I think in an age today where we're thankfully talking much more about mental health.
Yeah.
The fact that he battled with depression, and the fact that we have evidence now from many of those who went through the brutal period of the civil wars that there are things that soldiers are suffering with, things like PTSD.
Yeah.
Many of the conditions that we would recognise today.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me about your planned expansion then. It sounds very exciting.
So yeah, we have this remarkable building as it stands at the moment. The problem with it is quite small. It is just 70 square metres in terms of our public exhibition space as it stands at the moment. And so we really do need sort of a bigger space to both tell this rich story that we want to be able to display more of the collections, accommodate more visitors, and have obviously the sorts of visitor facilities that people expect in the 21st century. So working with several of the local authorities, we've actually acquired a building just across the square from the existing museum building, and the plan is over the next 5 years to gradually expand into that building as funds allow. So we reckon it'll be probably about a £6 million project, so there'll be considerable fundraising going on to sort of help try and achieve that sort of money. But around 2030 we're looking to hopefully have a greatly expanded Cromwell Museum with all the facilities we'd like, and really tell the story and bring it to life with new technology as well as these remarkable collections.
Yeah, yeah. So when are you open? When can people come and visit?
So the museum's open all year round. We're open Tuesday to Sunday from 10 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon. We're closed on Mondays at the moment, although we do open on bank holiday Mondays. And if you check our website, which is CromwellMuseum.org, you'll find all of our details on there. You'll also find us on pretty much all social media channels. We're on Facebook, we're on Bluesky, we're on X, we're on Instagram, we're on TikTok, we're on YouTube, where we've got a huge array of videos that bring to life this sort of period of 17th century history. So you can find more information on there, and that hopefully will engage, entertain and delight you.
Yeah, and is there a cost to visiting?
So because at the moment we're very small, we work on the basis at the moment we're free admission, but we do invite donations.
Yeah.
So my volunteers are very good at taking people around on tours and gently dropping this into people's ears. So it is a running joke that it's free to get in and £5 to get out.
Fantastic. And what do you love most about your job there, Stuart?
I think it's probably the fact that it's never the same day twice. It is every day is different because my job encompasses so many different areas. That I get to do something different every day, and sometimes it is sort of the admin bits, which is fine, but also as well I get to work with these remarkable collections, and I get to work with a wonderful group of people, both in terms of my professional colleagues and my volunteers, but some amazing visitors who come through the door, and some great projects and things to get involved with. So it's always it's never dull. It's always interesting. It's always something new to discover.
Yeah. And finally then, Stuart, why does this museum matter?
We have this amazing collection, which, as I say, is the best collection in the world of stuff related to one of the most complex, controversial and remarkable individuals in the 17th century. And it's a period of history that he both came out of and inspired, that raised questions for the first time in British history about what is the nature of democracy and freedom, whether or not we should have a monarchy, what is religious toleration and freedom of worship, what is freedom of the press, the role of women, relations with Ireland, relations with Europe, relations with empire. And these are all questions we're still wrestling with in 2026.
Yeah.
They haven't gone away. And they all emerge for the first time out of this period. And if we kind of, want to understand and hopefully find answers to those questions today, then it's really helpful, I think, for people to understand where they first originated from. And so this period of civil wars and revolution in the 17th century, I think is absolutely fascinating. Wonderful.
All very relevant today.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, thank you very much for being my guest.
You are very welcome, and lovely to speak to you.
Thanks for listening to Come Here. If you know a heritage attraction that would love to be featured, or you have a suggestion for somewhere you'd like me to cover, I'd love to hear from you. To find my email address and find out more about me, pop to my website at lizdrury.com. If you've enjoyed this episode, please do subscribe, rate and review the show. It really helps other people to find it. See you next time, and come and discover somewhere else worth visiting.